What if the night that thousands of ARMY had been waiting for suddenly turned into a moment of fear? What if, just hours before BTS was scheduled to take the stage in Baltimore, the sky suddenly became the biggest concern for everyone? And what if the fans who had traveled for hours, waited for months, and dreamed of seeing Jimin and the other members live were suddenly told to get inside the stadium for safety? This is exactly why Baltimore suddenly became the center of attention. Ahead of BTS ARIRANG at M&T Bank Stadium, severe weather moved into the area. A tornado warning was issued, and thousands of fans were forced to change their plans. But that was not the only shock. The VIP soundcheck that many fans had been desperately waiting for was cancelled because of the weather. And for ARMY, who had spent so much time, money, and emotion preparing for this unforgettable moment, that announcement was heartbreaking. But there is something even more important that you need to know. The tornado warning was eventually lifted. The concert itself was still able to go ahead. And what happened afterward transformed what could have been a frightening evening into a night that many ARMY will probably remember for a very long time. So what actually happened in Baltimore? Why were thousands of fans suddenly told to move inside? Was BTS ARIRANG really in danger of being cancelled? And most importantly, how did Jimin and the rest of BTS become part of a night that started with uncertainty and ended with thousands of people celebrating together? Welcome back to Jungkook Lover. Before we go any further, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because today's story is not simply about rain before a concert. It is about a moment when excitement suddenly turned into concern, when thousands of ARMY had to put safety before entertainment, and when an entire stadium had to adapt to rapidly changing weather conditions. And stay with us until the end of this part, because we are going to look at how the situation began, what the tornado warning actually meant, why the VIP soundcheck was cancelled, and how the atmosphere around BTS ARIRANG began to change. Baltimore was supposed to be celebrating. M&T Bank Stadium had been prepared to welcome BTS for 2 nights, August 10th and 11th. For thousands of ARMY, this was not an ordinary concert. Some fans had traveled from different cities. Some had crossed state lines. Some had traveled internationally. Others had spent months preparing for this exact moment. They had their outfits ready. Their BTS merchandise was ready. Their light sticks were ready. Their phones were charged. And most importantly, their hearts were ready. For many fans, seeing BTS live again was more than entertainment. It was emotional. It represented years of waiting, years of listening to their music through difficult moments, years of watching performances through screens and imagining what it would feel like to finally stand inside a stadium filled with tens of thousands of ARMY. And for Jimin's fans, that emotion was especially powerful. Imagine traveling all the way to Baltimore because you have waited so long to see Jimin standing on a massive stage again. Imagine counting down the days. Imagine finally arriving at the stadium. And then, only hours before the show, the sky suddenly becomes dark. At first, it might have looked like an ordinary change in weather. But then the situation became more serious. A tornado warning was issued. According to reports, the National Weather Service issued a tornado warning around 4:18 p.m. local time for Baltimore City and surrounding areas. The warning was based on radar indications of rotation within a thunderstorm moving east at roughly 40 miles per hour. The warning later ended at approximately 4:45 p.m. after the rotation weakened. And there is one extremely important detail that should not be overlooked. There was no confirmed tornado touchdown in the area. That means we should not confuse a tornado warning with confirmation that a tornado actually struck the stadium. A tornado warning is issued when weather conditions and radar data indicate that a tornado may be occurring or could develop, and people in the affected area are urged to take shelter. But for the thousands of people physically standing outside the stadium, the warning still had to be taken seriously. Because when it comes to severe weather, safety has to come first. A concert can be delayed. A soundcheck can be cancelled. A schedule can be changed. And this was the moment when the atmosphere around M&T Bank Stadium began to change. People who had been smiling, laughing, taking photos, and waiting excitedly suddenly had something else to think about. Safety. Reports and social media posts began circulating among ARMY. Fans were told to move inside the stadium and take shelter. Think about that scene for a moment. Thousands of people wearing BTS shirts. ARMY carrying purple light sticks. Fans holding banners. People preparing cameras to capture their first glimpse of BTS. And suddenly, instead of preparing for soundcheck, they were moving toward shelter. Some fans were confused. Some were worried. Some were disappointed. But many understood that the weather had to be taken seriously. One fan described the situation as completely crazy. Another reminded fellow ARMY to stay safe as the rain and tornado warning arrived just before the planned soundcheck. And this is where the story becomes much more emotional. Because for some fans, the soundcheck was not just a small part of the concert experience. It was the moment they had dreamed about. VIP soundcheck can offer fans a much closer experience before the main concert begins. They may hope to see Jimin from a closer distance. They may hope to hear BTS rehearsing. They may hope for a smile, a wave, a small gesture, maybe even one unforgettable moment that they can remember for the rest of their lives. For some people, that moment can become more valuable than any souvenir. But weather does not care about ticket categories. Weather does not care how expensive a ticket was. That is why the VIP soundcheck was cancelled. According to local reporting, the VIP soundcheck was cancelled because of the weather, with fans who had purchased the package expected to receive a partial refund. Of course, disappointment was understandable. Imagine spending months waiting for this day. Imagine traveling a long distance. Imagine finally arriving, and then hearing that one of the most anticipated parts of your experience will not happen. For a fan, that can hurt. But there is another way to look at it. The cancellation also demonstrated something important about large-scale concerts. Behind the lights, music, choreography, and celebrity appearances, there is a massive operation focused on safety. There are security teams. There are stadium officials. There are weather monitoring systems. There are medical personnel. There are production crews. And there are countless decisions happening behind the scenes that most fans never see. When everything goes according to plan, nobody notices those decisions. But when severe weather arrives, suddenly they become essential. For a few moments, the BTS concert was no longer just about music. It became about making sure thousands of people could remain safe. And perhaps this is one of the most important lessons hidden inside the story. Sometimes the most important part of a concert happens before the first song begins. Because when you see Jimin walking onto the stage with thousands of lights shining behind him, it is easy to forget how much work had to happen before that moment. You see the perfect performance. You see the choreography. You hear the music. You see 7 members standing together. But behind that beautiful moment is an enormous amount of preparation. And on this particular night, Baltimore reminded everyone that even the biggest global artists cannot control nature. The weather does not follow a concert schedule. The rain does not wait for the opening song. And the wind does not care whether thousands of ARMY have already arrived. The storm simply comes. And everyone has to respond. But then something changed. The warning ended. The weather began to improve. According to local reports, conditions improved enough for the concert to proceed as planned. Imagine the emotional shift. Only a short time earlier, people had been told to seek shelter. Now they were preparing to see BTS. Fear began turning into relief. Disappointment began turning into anticipation. And the dark clouds above Baltimore were slowly being replaced by something much brighter. Hope. For ARMY, that moment must have felt incredible. Because after everything that had happened, the possibility of seeing BTS on stage was still alive. And for Jimin's fans, that meant one thing. The wait was almost over. After years of anticipation, after the weather scare, after the cancelled soundcheck, Jimin would still have the chance to stand on that stage. And this is where the story becomes more than just a weather report. Because behind every fan standing inside that stadium was a personal story. Someone may have traveled from another country. Someone may have saved money for months. Someone may have bought the ticket as a gift for a loved one. Someone may have been going through a difficult period in life and considered this concert a chance to experience something beautiful. For many ARMY, BTS is not simply a music group. Their songs have been part of birthdays, graduations, long nights, difficult days, moments of loneliness, moments of celebration. And sometimes, when life becomes overwhelming, music becomes the thing that helps someone keep going. That is why seeing BTS live can carry such a powerful emotional meaning. It is not just about watching famous people perform. It is about finally standing in the same place as the artists whose music has accompanied your life. And that is why the Baltimore weather scare felt so intense. The fans had already come so far. They were already there. They were so close. And then nature suddenly reminded everyone that nothing is guaranteed. But the story did not end with disappointment. The rain did not erase the excitement. The tornado warning did not erase the love. And the cancelled soundcheck did not erase the possibility of the main concert. In fact, it may have made the eventual experience even more emotional. Because sometimes a moment becomes more meaningful when you realize how close you came to losing it. Baltimore was not simply waiting for BTS. Baltimore was waiting through uncertainty. And that distinction matters. The fans had to wait. The stadium had to adapt. The production team had to monitor the conditions. The weather had to improve. And only then could the night move forward. But even after the tornado warning ended, the situation was not something everyone could simply forget. Severe thunderstorms, heavy rain, strong winds, and possible flooding remained concerns. That meant ARMY still had to think about their safety. They had to think about transportation. They had to think about getting home afterward. And for people who had traveled from far away, those concerns were especially important. One fan reportedly traveled from Canada and had already made a long journey before arriving in Baltimore, only to encounter the storm. Think about that commitment. A person crosses borders, plans a trip, books transportation, prepares for the concert, carries merchandise, and then arrives to find severe weather waiting. Yet the fans continued. They waited. They stayed together. And when the conditions improved, the excitement returned. That is one of the most powerful things about ARMY. No matter how many times circumstances change, the community often finds a way to support one another. Fans remind each other to stay safe. They share updates. They help people who are confused. They tell one another where to go. And sometimes, in moments like this, a concert community becomes more than a crowd. It becomes a support system. That is what made Baltimore so emotional. The night did not begin perfectly, but perhaps it was never supposed to. Because the most unforgettable memories are not always the ones that go according to plan. Sometimes they are the nights when something unexpected happens. Sometimes they are the nights when everyone thinks, will this really happen? The crowd becomes silent. The stage lights turn on. And 7 familiar figures appear. That is the moment thousands of ARMY had been waiting for. But before we reach that moment, there is still one important question. How did the atmosphere inside the stadium change after the weather emergency? What did fans feel after losing the VIP soundcheck? And what happened when the concert finally moved forward? Most importantly, did Jimin and the other members do something on stage that made ARMY completely forget the frightening moments from earlier that afternoon? Those are the questions that make the second half of this story even more fascinating. Because the real emotional climax of Baltimore was not the storm. It was what happened after the storm. And perhaps that is the perfect metaphor for BTS and ARMY. Sometimes life becomes dark. Sometimes plans fall apart. Sometimes you are forced to wait. But eventually, the lights come back on. And when they do, you realize that the thing you were waiting for was still there.